How's everybody doing? Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. I do tend to get loud. Let me preface this. I'm a big accessibility advocate. So I travel all around the world. I speak about accessibility. This is going to be an interactive talk. So I'm going to ask questions. If you can raise your hand, raise your hand. If you can't raise your hand for whatever reason, give me a wink, give me a nod, whatever the case may be. Is that cool with everybody? Sweet. Who has seen me speak at an event before? Okay, perfect. So you know my style of speaking. Perfect. For the ones that don't know my style of speaking, like I said, I do get loud, I move around a lot, I cuss a lot. I'm trying to cut down on that just a little bit because I want to be professional, I guess. Questions, little housekeeping questions. If you have questions, ask me in the hallway. Ask me in the hallway track. The hallway track is where the relationships are made, right? After parties, dinners, lunches, that's where the relationships are made. Talks are great. You can learn a bunch of stuff, but you're not going to know about me unless you hit me up in the hallway. So if you have any questions about me, this talk, anything I do, please hit me up out there. Or you can buy me a beer. I was going to buy a beer and drink it up here, but I'm on a good streak. I don't have a hangover today, so that's really good. A huge thank you to Code on the Beach. I spoke here last year, had a blast. I gave a CSS talk last year. This year we're going to talk about CSS, but we're going to talk about CSS with accessibility. So huge thank you to Code on the Beach. Also, if it wasn't for sponsors, we wouldn't have events, okay? So when you're talking to the sponsors, when you're taking their swag, because let's be real, that's all we do is take their shit and walk away, tell them thank you, because if it wasn't for them, stuff like this wouldn't be able to happen. Let me switch this back around, actually. Let me do this. Oops, no, that's not what I want. Use a separate display. Perfect. Show of hands, how many are on Twitter? And I better see everybody's hand up. More than usual. So I've spoken at a lot of events, and you'd be surprised how many people in my audiences are not on Twitter. And it blows my mind. Like, how do you stay connected? How do you stay connected to the developer community? How do you network with people? How do you learn about new things that are happening out there? Well, this is the official hashtag for this event, COTB 2019. I also have it down here in the corner. If this is gonna work, yes, it will. Sweet, I just gotta finagle it. There we go. COTB 2019. So if you're on Twitter, you're taking pictures, you're quoting, whatever the case may be, make sure you tag it with COTB 2019. And also this one as well, hashtag developer community. I love the developer community. Like I said, I speak all around the world. I write blog posts, I host a podcast, which we'll talk about in a minute. I'm not here for me, right? I'm here for you, and I'm here for you, and I'm here for you in the corner. This is a safe space. I might crack a couple jokes. If I crack a joke, I want you to crack a joke on me, because it's fun, it's a safe space, but I'm not here for me. I do it for the love of the community. You are all my lifeblood. So when you're also tweeting, when you're taking pictures, whatever the case may be, when you tag COTB 2019, also tag developer community as well. That way we can kind of look at it and just kind of follow that trend of all-inclusive developer community. This is a video I play before every accessibility talk that I give. And it's from Apple. I'm not sponsored by Apple. I'm not paid by Apple. Does anybody from Apple work here in this room? Good, because I'm going to shit talk Apple in a few slides later. So I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to piss anybody off. But I play this video for everybody before all my accessibility talks, and there's a reason I play it. And I'll get into that reason once we let it go. Hopefully it'll play. Can everybody hear that? Okay. I think I have these speakers full blast, so. This is a very, very profound video. This means a lot in our industry, right? All too many times we build things that we think are cool, we think are dope. I used to do it back when I started long, long time ago. Black backgrounds, really small lime green text, purple text, like that was sweet, right? But I thought that was cool. Like they didn't think that was cool. We don't matter. Let me preface that with saying we don't matter. We matter if we are the ones with some type of impairment that are building these experiences. But if you are an able-bodied person, if you think something is cool, it doesn't matter. You might like Comic Sans or Papyrus. That might not be great for everybody. That might be good for a dyslexic user. You might like really off-the-wall, sweet neon colors. That's cool. That's great. But this shows that the bigger picture is not just us when it comes to accessibility. It's out there is what matters. This is another little tidbit I like to throw in some of my accessibility talks. This is Michael Supa. This was 76 years ago at IBM. IBM has been doing stuff in the accessibility space for a very, very long time. Michael Supa, he was one of the first blind technologists that IBM hired, and IBM hired him to help train other people with disabilities in technology. So if you're wondering like what IBM's doing in that space, definitely an amazing company to follow. They're doing great stuff. Also, I want to say Microsoft is another great company that's doing awesome things. How many have seen like the accessibility pad that you can use with an Xbox? Anybody seen that? I've actually seen that pad in person with a bunch of other assistive technology devices, and Microsoft is doing amazing, amazing things also in the accessibility space. So yeah, if you're not already following IBM, if you're not following Microsoft and what they're doing in accessibility, definitely give them a follow. I get this question a lot. Why? Why do you care so much about accessibility, Chris? I get this question at conferences. I get it in hallway tracks. I get it at lunch and dinner. I get it at meetups. I get it on Twitter, right? Because we're always fighting battles on Twitter. And the answer for me is simple. I don't like using the term easy or basic. It's a simple reason. So my mom is of the baby boomer generation. So I think she just turned 63 or 64 in May. I have to speak really loud for her to hear me. There's one disability. We have a hearing disability. She wears glasses. She has really bad trouble seeing. My grandma was diagnosed before she passed away with rheumatoid arthritis of the eye. So that kind of runs in the family. So my mom wears glasses. It's a visual disability. I can tell my mom that I would be speaking here. I could have talked to her yesterday and told her, hey mom, I'll be in Florida. I'm speaking at Code on the Beach again. I could have talked to her 15 minutes before this, and she's like, what are you doing? I have no recollection that I told her. But she can remember something that happened on September 13th, 1977, like that. It's cognitive disability. So there's 3. When she writes, she shakes. She has arthritis. She trembles. She has nervous system problems. So it's hard for her to write certain things. It's hard for her to move because her joints lock up. There's number 4. And number 5, knock on wood, are what we in the industry call impairments. They're not disabilities so much to say they're more impairments. A broken hand, a broken arm, a broken finger, right? That's going to heal. It'll get better. How many in this room have been a parent with a newborn child? Raise your hand. How many have tried to work on their computer holding their child and using their computer at the same time? It's difficult, isn't it? Most people don't think of that being an impairment, but that's also another impairment. Now your child will get older. You'll be able to set your child down. They'll be able to run rampant on your house, rip everything out of your fridge like I did when I was a little kid and my dad woke up to a little feet print everywhere. That's going to happen, right? But you'll still be able to put that child down. They'll be able to go around. But at that time, that's another impairment. If I can make an accessible user experience for my mom at the end of the day, I've done my job. And if you came into this talk thinking, well, shit, you know what? I don't know why I build accessible experiences and why am I doing this? Hopefully after this talk, you can go back and reflect on what your why is. And maybe then you'll understand where I'm kind of coming from with this talk. With that being said, thank you for coming. There's a handful of other talks going on. You chose to come to mine. We're going to have a good old time. It's called Focusing on Focus. You can catch me on Twitter at Salt and Burnham. How many Supernatural fans are in the audience? Raise your hand. You gotta be shitting me. This is a safe space. Raise your hand if you're a Supernatural fan. Nobody. What? You're like, I don't know if I want to say. I'm in the back. Buffy fans?
Yeah.
Buffy? Okay, all right. Charmed?
Yeah, I like Charmed.
Old Charmed or new Charmed? Old Charmed? Okay. Stranger Things?
Yes.
Right, all right. My people. Sweet, so yeah, you could tag Salt and Burnham. I got Salt and Burnham down here too, if you cease to forget. You can go to my website. It's nothing special. I put it together in a drunken stupor one night because I needed to. But there's like a link to like my speaking engagements and my schedule for the year, a Medium link, which I'm moving over to Gatsby, so none of that matters. My name is Chris. I'm a front-end developer. I work at Tuft and Needle. Does anybody know what Tuft and Needle is? Raise your hand. Does anybody have a Tuft and Needle mattress? Keep your hand. Maybe?
I just moved my parents' new one.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have one, but
Who has a purple? No.
my son does.
Ah, shit. Nectar? Lisa? No? The only one that matters is Tuft and Needle. So you want to know more about the company, I think we're hiring, but you want to know more about the products, you could talk to me, or you could talk to Amy. She's sitting right there in the purple. She's also a coworker of mine. So yeah, that's what I do. I did have a handful of slides for every talk that I give that talked a little bit about me. Humanize with you, let you know that I'm a person. I'm not just a robot up here blowing smoke up your ass. And I got some feedback one time from an event, and the feedback was pretty much like, Chris, we don't care about you. We care about your talk. And that hurt my feelings, right? It hit me in the feels pretty hard because it's like, you might not know that I like all these things. Like, you might not give a shit about what I'm talking about. But if you're into tattoos, hey, I'm into tattoos too. Let's talk about tattoos, right? Or you might be into horror movies, and I'm like, oh yeah, you see there's 2 new Halloweens coming out, 2020 and 2021. But you wouldn't know that. But I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? Screw that, I'm gonna put that shit back in. So, a little bit more about me. I'm a Google developer, expert in web technologies, a Microsoft MVP in developer technologies, international speaker, founder of Viewtroit. I don't longer live in Detroit anymore. I just moved to Denver, but I did start a Vue meetup in Detroit. I'm an Oracle Groundbreaker ambassador, host of Tales from the Script, which is a podcast of mine, and I do love tattoos and horror, if you didn't already tell. This is the podcast, Tales from the Script. If you don't follow. I've been slacking on it. I had a lot of travel last year, so I'm going to be picking up this year because I knocked my travel down in speaking engagements. So give that a listen. I think it's on Stitcher, Google Play, the podcast app. You can listen online. Give it a follow. And if you've never been on a podcast and you want to be on a podcast, hit me up. You don't have to be on like the coolest people top 10 list for you to get on my podcast. A lot of podcasts are like that. I don't play that game. You want to be on, I'll put you on. You're part of the developer community and you mean something to me. So, question time. Show of hands, how many front-end devs in the room? Back-end. QA. BA. Product owner, stakeholder. Designer. I design a little bit. Who works on accessibility? Everybody should have had their hand up when I asked that question. It does not matter what part of the web you have your hand in, from design to stakeholder, you must care about accessibility. It is a moral obligation to care about accessibility, and that is a hill I will die on Twitter, in this room, at every conference. And if you don't like what I'm saying, there's the door. I'll turn around. You're all here. I love you all. But no, seriously, if you have your hand in the web experience, you must care about accessibility. And it does not start with development. It starts with design. Designers should understand color contrast and how that works. What doesn't work, foreground and background. Your designers have to be a little familiar with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or the WCAG. Your designers have to understand a little bit about user flow and workflow and the document object model, the DOM, how Tabindex works, focus styles, which is what we're going to talk about. It starts with design. From the beginning to the end, accessibility all the way down. What was that book, Turtles All the Way Down or something? John Green wrote it? I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, doesn't matter. So according to the World Health Organization, 20% of people have some type of disability. Well, that's a small number, 20%, right? It's not a big number. That's crazy. If you put that number in the whole numbers, let's put it in whole numbers for a second. There are 7 billion people around the world, give or take, right? So 20% of that 7 billion is 1.4 billion people. So that 20% doesn't look so small anymore, now does it? That's a big ass number. But Taylor, we don't have people that, our people are internal. They use our applications. We don't have anybody that has a disability, Taylor. We don't care about accessibility, Taylor. How many have heard that? Our users are internal. They don't have disabilities. You know what I say to that? Bullshit. That's bullshit. I have worked with developers who are colorblind. I've worked with a developer in my old company who was deaf, completely deaf in one ear. BAs, QAs that are colorblind, stakeholders that can't see the products we're building. Right? If anybody ever tells you our users are internal, we don't have to worry about accessibility, you don't have to say bullshit. Don't do me, right? I do me. You do you. But push back a little bit and be like, no. That's not the way this works. And have some facts, have some numbers to back that up. But never just take that with, oh yeah, you're right. Nobody's gonna be like, how you doing? I'm Chris, I'm colorblind. Nice to meet you. What color's your shirt? Your shirt would screw me up if I experienced color vision deficiency, right? Internalize that 20% within your organization. This is another hill I will die on. Who has heard this term before? ALI or A11Y or A11Y, right? Does anybody know? Now, this is a specific question, and this is where the education comes in, because a lot of people think this is a very exclusive term, and it's not. It's not an exclusive term. You can see this whole thread I had going on Twitter. It's never ending. It's like CSS devs suck, and that's another hill I will die on because I'm a CSS developer and we matter. But does anybody know what this term actually means? Not what it spells out, but what the term is called. Thank you, numernym.
You know who taught me that?
Me? Yeah. My man, all right. It's called a numernym. Now what the hell is a numernym? Well, this is what a numernym is. A numernym is when you take the first letter, you take the last letter, and you smash the words together, or the letters in between, and you get A11Y because there's 11 letters between A and Y. You've seen this in the wild in other places. Who's heard the term I-18N? Internationalization. Who's heard the term L10N? Localization. Who knows the numernym for Kubernetes? K8S. These are not exclusive terms. They're very inclusive. But these are just ways of shortening the words. And it kind of all goes back to the 140 character limit on Twitter. Accessibility is a long word. But accessibility might also be hard for someone to say for someone who has an accent, right? Or who has trouble pronouncing letters and words. A11Y is a lot easier to say than accessibility, right? But no, I'm glad we're all on the same page with that. So yeah, if you see that in the wild, if you hear the term A11 or ALI or ALI in the context of web and software, not being a male ally in tech, which I hope all the men in this room are, 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, they're talking about accessibility on the web. So what is accessibility? The better question is though, what is web accessibility? And there's not really a fine line here. Accessibility is accessibility, but according to the W3, this is what they have to say. They say web accessibility means that people with disabilities can use the web. I need to watch this, I almost busted my ass. But I don't like this definition. And there's a reason I don't like this definition. This is where it's gonna be interactive. So I'm gonna ask a question. Excuse me, this is an open web, correct? Yes, Chris, this isn't. Did y'all have like too much, y'all in a food coma? What is it, 2 hours after lunch? Too many shrimp tacos. Too many beers? My man. So if this is an open web, and an open web means an inclusive web, and an inclusive web means a web for all, then this is a lot better. Web accessibility means that everyone can use the web. Everyone. Not just abled users, not just disabled users, everybody. We're not out here building separate experiences for every single disability that we encounter. We are building one experience that is accessible to everyone. Now there are websites out there, and I've seen it, and it's really, really cool, where they'll have like accessibility simulators, where you can change the color. So if you're coming to that experience and you experience deuteranopia, which is a color vision deficiency, one of the most common ones, you can change that experience to change the color for you. So you click a button, it changes the color scheme, so now you can visually interact with that. If you're a dyslexic users have easier, can easily read slanted letters. So italicized letters, Comic Sans, Roboto, those are good for dyslexic users. So if you're a dyslexic user, and if you go to a website that has this type of simulator, you can click that, it'll change all of the font to Comic Sans. Now you're being completely inclusive. This stuff matters. This is another one from WebAIM. Move out of the way here. The web is not a barrier to people with disabilities. It is the solution. That's the key word. There's two key words here, not and solution, but the one I want to kind of drive home is solution. What do we do on a daily basis? We come up with solutions. That is our job. That is what we do. I'm not in this for a paycheck. I've been writing code since I was 11 years old. This has always been a passion. Coming up with solutions, making things better, making the web, making the world a better, accessible user experience. It's what we do. So that's what we have to do. We have to come up with solutions. That's why I say this is a must. Accessibility is not a requirement. It is a must. With that being said, what can happen when you don't have an accessible user experience? Shout it out. I'm doing everything. I'm looking for one high-level thing, but just shout out what you think happens when your user experience is not accessible.
Some humans can't use it.
There's one. Excludes. What else? High level. Come on now. I've had one person in one talk and 40 talks say, it's this. And I was like, yeah, you got it. What else?
Money.
What's that? Lose money. How do you lose money? What else? Lawsuits. Thank you. I don't beat around the bush. I will flat out tell you your ass is going to get sued if you don't button up. It's the way it works. There are headhunters out there, and this is true, that will find inaccessible websites and sue you. And they will sue you, and they will sue you, and they will sue you until you are fully compliant. Now, there are a lot of users out there who do sue companies because their websites aren't compliant. How many artists are in this room? Drawing, painting, pottery, sewing, knitting, right? Are you familiar with Dick Blick Art Materials? Dick Blick was sued because their experience wasn't accessible. What about Winn-Dixie? How many are local to Florida? Raise your hand. How many don't have a Winn-Dixie where they live? All right, so Winn-Dixie is like a Kroger or a Meijer grocery store. Winn-Dixie was sued because their experience wasn't accessible. How many work in fintech in this room? I used to work in fintech, mortgage fintech. We don't work in fintech. Amy.
How many have worked in fintech?
How many have worked in fintech?
Wow, still only a few.
Wow.
Jacksonville, that's crazy.
So just because somebody works in financial tech and you make billions and billions and billions of dollars a year does not cover your ass from a lawsuit. Case in point, Bank of America was sued. They pretty much run the country, right? They're one of the top people that run the country. They were sued because their experience wasn't accessible. I love showing off this chart right here. This is from the Safe Law website, a federal website, accessibility lawsuits by state in 2017. 9 states in Puerto Rico, and we have 814 website lawsuits in 1 year. 1 year, that's 2.5 a day. That is unacceptable by every stretch of the term. Now, the 2 states that have the highest, according to this chart, are Florida with 325 and New York with 335. Why do you think Florida is so high? Aging population. I'm from Michigan. It gets cold in Michigan. When people retire, they go to Florida. That's just the way it goes, right? What about New York? Why would New York be so high?
Same problem. Also, they have a large population base.
That's one. What else? Laws, regulations, more people. I like that point. But California's a big state. They got tons of people in Cali. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. A lot of the cities west of the Rockies are younger cities, right? New York's been there for a minute. There's a lot of people crammed in New York, so much so that people live underground, right? That's not the problem in California. Plus the laws and regulations are different in Cali. But that number, 814, that is completely unacceptable. So I kind of gave like a little rough A to Z of accessibility stuff, and we're going to start talking about focus. So what is focus? Well, first off, it's a pseudo class, and it's written like this, : focus. And what this does is it's a visual indicator that you're interacting with something on the page, whether it be a button, a link, an input, right? Some type of visual indication that there's an interaction happening and you are in control of that interaction by what you're presented on the screen. How many been in a situation like this before? Developer versus designer? Mostly everybody's hand should be up. I've been in this a handful of times. I go through it now. I've gone through it in the past. I've gone through it through myself because my design brain says this is dope. Developer brain says, I don't think so. It's not going to work. And there could be times when someone comes up to you, probably from your marketing department or your design department or your art director, and they say, you know what, that gray or blue ring around inputs and buttons and links, we don't like that. And I hate to ask you to do this, but can you remove it? And you can go up to them and be like, sure, you know what, we can do that. But thank you, you're beautiful. But what are you going to do to replace it? And if they look at you confused, then this is the perfect time to open up the communication and the collaboration around focus styles and accessibility. And that's what we're going to talk about. The one thing though, please don't do that. And if you see this, do something about it. Never, ever, 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 ever set focus outline to 0 or focus outline to none. Why do you think that is?
Because that would remove the indication of where you're at.
Exactly. It removes it. It removes it for your mouse users. It removes it for your keyboard users. And it could possibly remove it for your users coming from assistive technologies. What do you mean, Chris? Well, there's these things called sip and puff machines based on air pressure. If somebody cannot use their hands at all, that's how they interact with your experience. Braille machines, which is a piece of machinery that goes right by the keyboard. The monitor reads out on the Braille machine through a set of pins and needles, or pins and holes, and it reads, right? Tap machines, like what you saw in the video, the other kind of tap machine where you can only use your head and you're completely immobile from the neck down. This stuff matters. Accessibility matters. But don't do this. How many are familiar with resets in CSS? Okay, how many use Eric Meyers reset? Eric Meyers, there's 2 of them out there. I mean, there's a lot of like homegrown ones, but the 2 famous ones are Eric Meyers reset and normalize. In Eric Meyers reset, he does set the outline to 0, but he explicitly says, remember to define the focus styles. Well, how do you do that? Well, you would import your reset first because the cascade, and I love the cascade. That's why I love CSS so much. A lot of people don't like CSS. They say it's hard because they don't understand the cascade. It's another hill I'm going to die on. But then you put your CSS after that. Because what a reset does is it completely wipes the browser clean. It gives you a blank slate, resets all of the user agent default styles to 0. So that way it's sort of consistent across every browser. So make sure you define those styles later down in your style sheet. So what about normalize? How many use normalize? Raise your hand. Better question. How many use Bootstrap? Raise your hand. You're using normalize. Normalize comes with Bootstrap. So if you do a search for focus in normalize, their CSS file, you're not going to find it. Why are you not going to find it? You will find something called like a focus ring or Moz focus ring. These things aren't anything, really. They do nothing. And if you actually go to the Mozilla Developer Network, MDN, and you do a search for -moz -focus ring, it'll be there. But there is also a warning at the top with a demo that says, this doesn't work, so don't try and use it. And my dumbass, like, watch, I'm smarter than Mozilla. This is gonna work, I'll do it in Firefox. Still don't work. So you can try it. I think it might work now if it's behind a feature flag in Chrome. It's wonky how it works. But so focus ring actually was changed to focus visible, not last year, but I think the year before, May 18th, it was changed to focus visible. Focus visible is currently in the CSS4 working draft. So we need to push to get this into browsers. I think this is what's behind a feature flag in Chrome, but it doesn't work yet. There is a polyfill out there. There's another tool that I don't talk about, but I do talk about the polyfill. And if I do have time, I'll demo it because it's really, really dope. But yeah, so that all changed to focus visible. Like I said, you can use it behind a feature flag in Chrome. So why do we need it? Why do we need focus? Why is it important? We'll get into why it's important, but why do we need it? Well, there's a lot of reasons why we need it. Is anybody familiar with two blind brothers? No? So two blind brothers are two brothers. They create clothing. They have this simulator down here in the corner, right? There's the brothers right there. They experience Stargardt's disease. Stargardt's disease is a macular degeneration of the eye. It's a field of vision disability. This is how they see things every day. Macular degeneration. Degeneration means it's not getting better. It's only going to get worse. So this black spot in the middle of their vision is going to go out and out and out and out until they're completely blind. People see like this all the time. There's actually 3 different types of field of vision. Peripheral, where you would think you'd be able to see you can see the peripheral. Central, where you can only see the center. Well, it's either one or the other. And then a mixed vision loss, where it's kind of spotty all over the place. Let's say that you had an input and you were putting in a login and a password, and it was somewhere in here, but you were trying to tab into that and you didn't know where you were tabbing because you don't have an indication that you're there. And then you start typing a password, you don't know where that password is going anymore. That's a huge security problem. That's an exaggerated example. But I had somebody come up to me after a talk, I gave this talk, and they said, that actually happened to me. I was typing in a user login, I went to go type my password. By muscle memory alone, I got distracted, I looked back over, I started typing. I didn't see a focus ring, but I started typing anyways. Because in my mind, that's where I navigated to, because Tabindex, right? And they started typing their password, they didn't know where they were typing it. That's why focus matters. So why is it important? Well, there's a lot of reasons why focus is important. But the main being inclusivity, right? Many users with motor impairments, they rely on a keyboard, okay? They can't use a mouse. Someone that has tremors, like my mom, for instance, with nervous problems, she'd have a hell of a time trying to keep her hand straight and navigating. That's frustrating. That causes anxiety. Now you're just stacking on top of the problem. Causing anxiety in your experience is also not being inclusive. Point in case, how many have bought tickets through Ticketmaster or some other type of ticketing system where you had a timer and you had to get it done by the time? That is frustrating for a user. That can cause users a lot of anxiety. No longer are you being inclusive. Same principle applies. Or if your user doesn't have any hands, arms, right? How are they going to use the experience if they can't focus? Or blind users, or partially blind. This stuff matters. So this is from the W3. I like it. Any keyboard operable user interface has a mode of operation where the keyboard focus indicator is visible. Is visible. Now, it doesn't say it's got to be gray. It doesn't say it has to be blue. It doesn't say it has to be Rebecca purple. It has to be visible. There has to be something there. So when I love these next few slides, when I talk about there has to be something there, the browsers handle focus differently, both presentationally and functionally, whether you're coming from the mouse or the keyboard. So this is how Chrome handles mouse focus. You get just a gray focus ring, indicator, you get a focus ring around that. Now, these are native components, native input, native button with some styles. When you attach styles to a native button, there's some wonkiness with the accessibility tree. You can pick my brain about that afterwards. But with semantic markup is by default accessible. So if you were wondering, well, shit, how do I start off building accessible experiences? Look at your markup. By default, it's accessible if you're writing semantic markup. So that's how Chrome handles mouse focus. This is how Chrome handles the keyboard focus. You get focus around the input, you get focus around the button, and then you get focus around the button with the styles. This is how Firefox handles mouse focus. Each one of these is different. Some is different shades of color. Some of the focus outlines are indented and dotted. Some are blue, some are periwinkle, some are baby blue, some are light gray, some are gray. Keyboard focus. Now see that? Is it going to do it? No, because I have that down. It has like an inset in dotted line, right? Safari mouse focus. You get some blue, an indication that the button was clicked with gray, and nothing with that button. Now here's the kicker. Keyboard focus is amazing because this is what happens. This is unacceptable, so I'm glad nobody in here works for Apple because this is a joke. You focus to the window, you focus to the input, you try to focus to the button that is in the tab order, the logical DOM order, and it goes back to the address bar and drops the address bar down. You can sit there and you can do this shit all day long, and it's not going to change. Do you know how to fix this? I didn't know how to fix this at first. Apparently it's all over Stack Overflow as well. You have to go up into Apple's, up here where the Apple is. You got to go into settings or preferences. You got to go into accessibility, and you have to turn this feature off in Safari. Unacceptable.
So is their thought process such that an impaired user might need to be able to get back to the core functionality of the menu system, the navigation?
Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows that?
I have no idea.
If you define the tab index, would that not help?
This doesn't have a tab index at all. So if you were to define the tab index, it might, but by default, as long as there's no tab index, it's supposed to go inline.
It will be linear if it's undefined.
Okay, cool. But you have to turn this off. You can't do that, right? You're not supposed to make your user think. How many have read Stephen Krug's book, Don't Make Me Think, right? Perfect example. Do not make your users think. This is a huge problem. Edge handles it pretty nicely. I like their colors that they use. A little bit of blue, a little bit of light blue, a little bit of baby blue. And this is how Edge handles the keyboard focus. Completely different from the mouse focus. You have no blue now. You have a black focus ring, and you have dotted lines for both your focus rings on your buttons. So that kind of gets into tab index. This is a great topic to talk about tab index. Who's familiar with tab index? How many use positive integers as tab index? So you can, quote unquote, use positive integers. Using positive integers nowadays is an anti-pattern. Why? Because Google said so, right? If you can stick with 0, 0 will follow the natural DOM order all the way down. I do see a case where you could use positive integers. Let's say if you went from 0 to 5 in groups of 5, right? 5 to 10. That way, if you have something that needs to go in that section, then you can put tab index, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the case may be, so it'll still follow it. But the more you start adding in, the more you have to start rewriting your tab index. So that can cause a lot of problems. Never use -1. Reason being, it takes it out of the natural DOM order, but it's still focusable. So what I mean by never use it, don't use it just to take focus away from something. Use it if you have off-screen interactions, like menus, hamburger menus, off-screen widgets. You can set that to -1 because you'll still be able to focus to that using the focus method in JavaScript and bring it back in, work through, and then you can tab back into your main window and keep using that experience. Everybody cool with that? Sweet. So when you're talking about branding with your marketing team, your art director, your design team, design lead, because focus doesn't match the branding, they want to remove it, you can match your branding with focus styles. You can change the borders, you can change the background, you can change the font size, the font color, the font family. You can do all of these amazing things with focus styles. It goes back to education, right? Now this goes back to CSS education a little bit. All I'm doing here is I just take the focus pseudo class. I can change the outline color, the background color, and the font size. And then when I tab through it, it changes, right? So you can match your branding if these were your colors. Or if you were trying to build an experience for somebody that needed like zoom on demand when you focus. You write a little bit of JavaScript, work this, change those properties, and boom. Right here, I changed the outline color to blue, background to orange, and the font size to 1.2 Ms. I even changed the font family, I think, to a sans serif or a serif font. And then it changes that as well when you're using focus. I don't know what the hell that was. Let's see, let's change it to a serif and see what happens. So it looks like Times New Roman, that's fun. So yeah, you can do all of these things. Focus Visible is the one I was talking about earlier. And like I said, this is in the CSS4 spec. I'm gonna do a demo. Hopefully the higher aboves, the demo people will help me out here. You can also get the polyfill right here. github.com/wicg/focus-visible. This was made by a handful of amazing engineers, two of which, Alice Boxhall, Rob Dodson, who work at Google. If you don't follow them, follow Alice Boxhall, follow Rob Dodson. Rob Dodson also has a special on the Chrome YouTube channel called Alleycasts, where he talks all about accessibility things, semantic markup. That's where I got the idea for this talk a couple years ago. He did a segment on focus ring and this focus visible polyfill, and I thought it was amazing, so I built a talk all around it. So what this does, this is a little snippet of the polyfill code. It means that anything that is focused that doesn't have a focus ring, set that outline to none. This caters to the mouse users really only. The reason being is that mouse users didn't need to see that they were interacting with something on the page. They had full control, they had full mobility, full ability to know that they were clicking on a mouse. They didn't need a ring around it. So this was kind of implemented in that way. So it sets it for all this stuff right here in this whitelist, but you'll notice there's no button in here, specifically for the mouse users. And the way this works is that, and it's really, really cool, it removes the focus ring for mouse users, but puts it back in for keyboard users. So based on UA heuristics, user agent heuristics, it'll either put that focus ring back in for the keyboard or put it in for your mouse or trackpad users. And it's really, really fresh how it works. Let me show you. Let's do this.
Can it differentiate a mouse versus touchscreen?
That's a good question. I don't know. Docs, talks.
Click on an area.
It'd be easy to figure out. Open a browser and I bet you it has to.
I don't care about the release notes. Can everybody see that? Cool. So you'll see down here, I'm just pulling it in from Node. I downloaded it from GitHub, right? Call it above the body tag, or the closing body tag, because performance reasons. And then this was a little test I was doing at the last conference, which focus visible and focus within is what I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. They don't work together simultaneously. So the focus visible outline is set to 0. Say that again. Oh shit, there we go. You know what, I'm just gonna do this. Boop. Okay, cool. This should work. So, I'm gonna use the keyboard, and you'll see a focus ring around that input, a focus ring around that button, and then a focus ring around that button. Now I'm gonna use the trackpad. You get a focus ring around the input, but nothing on that button and nothing on that button. Completely removes it for both those buttons, right? Back again, focus, focus, focus. Focus on the input, but not on the buttons. This is an amazing, amazing tool. I've had people come up to me after this talk and show me PRs and issues that they started raising in my talk saying, hey, we need to start using this polyfill because this is gonna be amazing for all of our users. Same thing with Focus Within. Is everybody cool with this? Everybody get the link to the GitHub repo if you want to play with it? All right, let's. So here's another awesome one. Who follows Una Kravitz? Everybody needs to follow Una Kravitz. Amazing developer, super cool. I didn't find out about this until the beginning of last year. This is another pseudo class supported. Has to deal with accessibility. It's called Focus Within. And the way this works is you can tack a Focus Within on like a parent element, like a form, change the background color, the color of the text, and then this is what happens. The whole entire parent gets focus. So now there's no second guessing where you're at with that experience. The second you focus into the input or whatever's in that parent, the whole entire thing is focusable. And it indicates, hey, I know this is where I'm at in this experience. I don't have to double check anything. You can also do this to match your branding as well. I've had people come up to me after my talks and show me that they want to start using this in their projects. Because it's an accessibility win, it's the CSS win, you're learning a little about CSS, you're learning about accessibility, but the important thing is that you're making your experience accessible for your users. I'm probably gonna cut here 10 minutes early. Is everybody cool with cutting out 10 minutes early? I think a lot of people are cutting out. It's hard to keep a room for 60 minutes. Trust me, I've had to do 2-hour talks. I gotta do a 4-hour workshop in a couple months. It's hard. So we're gonna go through this. Some awesome people you need to be following. Marcy Sutton. Does anybody know who Marcy is? Marcy's a good friend of mine. Marcy used to work at DQ, not Dairy Queen. DQ is an accessibility consulting company in Ann Arbor, Michigan. They built a tool called Axe Core, which is an accessibility testing framework. You can use it in Selenium, Cypress, whatever the case may be, or you can install it in Firefox and Chrome as an extension to run accessibility audits on your experiences. How many use Lighthouse every day? Oh, we're going to talk about, come talk to me about Lighthouse after this. Lighthouse is an amazing tool you should be using. You can run performance audits, accessibility audits, SEO audits, PWA, progressive web app audits, and best practices audits with your experiences. The accessibility audit in Lighthouse uses Axe Core under the hood. Marcy's at Gatsby right now. She's the head of learning. So if you're not familiar with Gatsby, check that out. Follow Marcy. Alice Boxhall is another one. Please follow her. Her and Rob helped build the Focus Visible Polyfill. Both of them are at Google. Other companies, DQ, like I said, not Dairy Queen. The Pacello Group, they do amazing things. They're an accessibility company. They're doing amazing things in the accessibility space. IBM, another one. They're doing good stuff. You saw Michael Supa 76 years ago. All my resources are in a gist. There's too many resources to put on a slide, and I'm not going to give you 5 slides of resources because that's just dumb, in my opinion. So if you want to take a picture of this, get all the resources, I'll give you about 5 seconds. I know I said I shouldn't give anybody countdowns, but I'm just kidding. I'll wait till you're all done. Once phones go down, I know.
Once phones go down.
Yeah, once phones go down. And don't be a smartass and leave yours up either. Cool, everybody got a picture? Almost? Cool? Sweet. If you want the slides, they're here. If you want me to tweet them out, because nobody ever comes up to me and says, can you please tweet out your slides? If you don't tell me you want them, I'm not going to tweet them out. Flat, straight up. But if you want them, let me know. I'll tweet them out. But you can take a picture and you can go there as well. If you want to play with any of the focus stuff that I did in CodePen, Not focus visible, but the focus within, stuff like that. You can go to my code pen, play around with that. I'm Chris. I'm also Salt and Burnham. That's my time, and thank you.